ॐ नमो नारायणाय ॐ नमो नारायणाय
Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarvagurubhyo Namaha. So today, after a long break, we're starting our basic Sanskrit series again, following the book of Thomas Aquinas, and we are up to chapter or lesson 11. So let's have a look at lesson 11. So lesson 11. The topics covered today will be internal Sandhi rules. Grammar will be feminine nouns in long A, ending in long A, and third-person pronouns. We'll also be looking in the vocabulary. He'll be giving us some feminine nouns ending in long A. So we will only learn 2 internal Sandhi rules at this time. These need not be memorized, but are mainly for recognition. Anybody who's been following this book, he's provided charts so that you can understand how to break sandhis and make sandhis, which are the conjunctions between 2 words. Here we're going to be talking about internal sandhi, which is inside the word. And he's given those charts for 3 areas: for vowel sandhis, where 2 vowels come, one at the end of a word, one at the beginning of the next word; consonant sandhis, where a consonant ends a word, another consonant begins the next word; and visarga sandhi, where the first word ends in a visarga, which is an H with a dot under it for everybody who doesn't remember that, and the next word. So that's what we've covered so far in Sandhi, and we have charts for that. There are lots and lots of rules to remember if you want to remember it in terms of rules. But the charts help us to understand how to do it without remembering all the rules. Later on, if the rules may just come naturally and people may just understand how Sandhi works. So the first rule, now we're talking about internal Sandhi. Internal Sandhi means within a word, Sandhi between parts of a word. So what are the parts of the word that we've seen before? We've seen that there are roots. As far as verbs are concerned, there are roots and there are endings that go on the roots. Right? There are roots that turn into stems, and the stems have endings added on them. We've only seen the endings for the active and middle endings, singular, dual, and plural, first person, second person, third person of the present tense so far. In active and middle, we have not, that's as far as verbs are concerned. So we have stems, verb stems added to roots. Roots turning into stems added to the verbal endings. We also have nouns or nominal words that have vibhaktis or different case endings, and they are in singular, dual, and plural, and in all the different cases from nominative, accusative, instrumental, dative, ablative, locative, and vocative. So those 8 cases. So this is where Sandhi may come into force between the stems of verbs and nouns and their endings. So the two, and in any case, it's within a word, within a pada, within an actual word, which has got an ending or doesn't have an ending, whatever it is, within the word, and not between words. The first rule is that S, this dental S, which has got no accent on it, changes to cerebral S, the S with the dot under it, right? Which is so the dental S, which is pronounced sa, is pronounced to sha, the cerebral S, if immediately preceded by any vowel except for or but short A and long A, or preceded by K or R, which is called refa in Sanskrit, right? The letters K or R. The rule does not apply if the dental S is final, in other words, if it comes at the end of the word, or followed by an R inside the word. It applies even if an anuswara is that M with a dot under it or over it, right, in transliteration, anuswara, pure nasal sound, right? and it's given here as M with the dot under it, or visarga, the H with the dot under it, comes between the vowel K or R and the S. Okay, this rule might be clearer if we look at it in chart form. So he's made a little chart here. So first of all, if any vowel or K or R comes in a word, and then after it, in spite of an intervening visarga or anushwara inside the word, right? It changes an S which comes afterwards, a regular dental S, sa, to sha, the cerebral form of S, unless final or followed by immediately by an R, by the letter R. Okay, so that's a pretty complicated little rule there. We'll see if it comes up a lot. Anyway, so basically what it's saying is somehow or other the dental becomes a cerebral S. Yes. If the sound of the dental S, if the sound following the dental S, the letter following the dental S is ta, the dental T, or ta, the aspirated dental T, right? Or na, the dental nasal, right? In the family of dentals, sounds which are produced by the tongue touching the avelar ridge or the back of the teeth, or sometimes even the tip of the teeth. It is also retroflexed or made cerebral. And an example of this would be, we have that stem, that stem or root star, which means to stand, but the third person singular present tense active ending of star, the verb star, to stand, is tishtati. So you can see the T, forget about the T that starts in the beginning there, but if you just see stati, like that, right? The S and the T have both become cerebral there, right? So the reason is because why? Because we had a vowel come before it, right? There's a I there, ikara, tish, right? Instead of tistati, it becomes tishtati because of that I comes before it, right? There's no intervening visarga or anushwara, right? The S then changes to cerebral. The T also changes to a cerebral, by the way, right? And then it doesn't come at the end of the word, and it's not followed immediately by an R. So that rule applies there in that instance. Okay, so this may be seen very, very complex and minutia, but so don't worry about it too much. It'll come naturally. You'll understand it, because actually, when we talk about the word star, we never talk about star. We always quote verbs in the third person singular present tense, either active or middle, depending on whether they're atmanepeda or parasmipeda verbs, and whether they take middle or active endings. So we always quote them like that anyway, right? So we never talk about star. We always talk about tishtati, right? So, or gachati or agachati or whatever verb, jivati, whatever we're talking about. We never talk about the root so much anyway. So it shouldn't be too much of a problem, because that change has already occurred by the time it becomes a proper stem from the root. Okay, so the second rule. Okay, so that was the first rule. What is it? It's dental S changing to cerebral S in some circumstances. Just remember that. The next one is a rule that says that dental N turns into cerebral N sometimes. So you can see the pattern here. We've got some letters that are dental, and somehow they become cerebral because of some other letters that come after or before it. So if preceded anywhere in the same world by refa, rakara, the letter R, the vowel ri, the short vowel ri, the long vowel ri, or by the cerebral sibilant S, sha, which we just talked about, right? So all of these letters coming before a dental N in a word will change that dental N into a cerebral N. Certain sounds may interrupt the process. So you may see and here's the chart to study to give us an idea, right? So in the beginning here on the left-hand side, we see that if you've got a word, and in that word, before a dental N, you get the word Narayana, for example, right? It has an R in it, right? Before we get to the N. So the N turns into a cerebral N. So it becomes Narayana, right? Narayana. So we got R, Re, long Re, and or Sha, the cerebral S, coming before Cha, Ja, Nya, which is that whole palatal family of letters, right? Ta, da, da, na, which is the whole cerebral, or retroflex, he calls it here, cerebral family of letters, right? Ta, da, without the N, because the N's the thing that we're looking for to change, right? The dental N, the whole family of dental letters. La, the letter L, palatal S with the acute accent, which is pronounced sh, and then the S, the dental S, sa. So if these can unless these ones interfere and come in between the R, the Re, the long Re, or the cerebral S, it will change unless they interfere and they come in between those things. So the changes the dental N to a cerebral N in the third box here. And then the fourth box says if followed by vowels, if followed by any vowels, right? If the N is followed by any vowels, or the letter ma, the letter ya, the letter va, or another N, another dental N. So that's the rule. Okay, so let's not worry about it too much. These are sort of complicated. I find, if there's some very short Paninian rules that cover these, right? And if you can learn those, then you don't have to learn all these charts or these long things like that. But that may be a little bit down the road. So let's just carry on. All right. So now let's continue with understanding of that second rule about dental N changing into cerebral N. Retroflex sounds, or what we call cerebral sounds usually, such as the letter R, short Re, long Re, and cerebral S, sh, leave the tongue in a retroflex position, right? So when we say those, the tongue tends to tip backwards and point more towards the top of the head, or the cerebrum, right? And that's how we get those cerebral letters. Unless certain sounds interfere. How would the sound interfere? If you get a sound that takes the tongue off into a different direction, right? Then that would interfere with that. But if the tongue immediately is there and there's no intervening sound that takes us to another place in the mouth, the tongue, then it continues to want us to pronounce letters at that place where it pronounces cerebral letters. So unless certain sounds interfere, such as the retroflex sounds of the releasing type. So he's saying retroflex sounds of the releasing type, like, I don't know what he means by releasing type. All of these letters usually that come in the vargas, or the families, the 5 families of 25 letters that we have in the different guttural, palatal, cerebral, dental, and labial families, right? They're all called stops in Sanskrit. In English, and in Sanskrit, they belong to these vargas, or these families. He's going to mention varga here. Varga means family. These five families. And I don't know what he means exactly by releasing type. Some releasing type could be he's talking about stop. A stop means when you make a sound that is not a vowel. A vowel can be extended, but it stops. The sound stops at a certain point because the tongue comes out and touches a particular part of the mouth, or lays flat, and use the lips, and then it pulls back and lets the air out, and it creates that particular sound. So that's why it's called a stop. So or sounds from the row above or below, right? If we look at the Sanskrit alphabet, what's above and below the what's above and below the retroflex or the cerebral line or family, right, which is called tavarga, right? Above it is the palatal chavarga, and below it is the dental tavarga. Okay, so when kavarga or pavarga, well, even further above it is the kavarga, which is the guttural. When kavarga, ka ka ga ga nga, right, the gutturals, and pavarga don't seem to move the tongue enough to change the retroflex position. Okay, so what he's saying is only when we're really going away from cerebral and we're going to kavarga, the gutturals, or to the palatals, which is just on the lips, it doesn't seem to move the tongue enough to change it out of the retroflex position. But if we go simply to the palatals or to the palatals or the dentals, it does change the position of the tongue, which is just pronounced a retroflex or cerebral letter. Okay, so that's all very complicated, and let's have a look at some examples here. So unless certain sounds interfere, such as the retroflex sounds of the releasing type, like ta, and sounds from the row above or below. What's the row above or below again? The row above is the chavarga, which is the palatals. The row below is the tavarga, which is the dentals, right? Then, unless there's an interference like that, then the dental end gets retroflexed or gets cerebralized and gets turned into the cerebral end. Right, so we already talked about why kavarga letters like in kavarga family and pavarga family don't seem to make that interference work. So let's have a look at just some practical examples here. We know the word Rama. Rama means Lord Rama, right? So it's the name of Lord Rama, the son of Dasaratha. And Rama in the singular instrumental case is Ramena. Ramena. That's the tritiya or instrumental third case ending singular, right? So when we see that the ending there is ena. So we have ram plus ena. Somehow or other the a goes away and ena is added like that. Okay, so why is it that we pronounce it ramena with a cerebral n and not ramena with a dental n? And the reason is because there's an R in the beginning, right? There's an R in the beginning. So that R in the beginning of Rama is itself a cerebral type letter, and therefore it changes the dental N to a cerebral N. Okay, so let's look at another one, Putrena. So we can see in Putrena, Putra means a son. So Putra also, Tritiya Ekvachana or instrumental singular becomes Putrena. Now, why doesn't it just become Putrena with a dental N? Why does that N at the end on the ending turn into a cerebral with a dot under it? Because we have an R that comes before it. See the R that comes before it? Putrena. So the R changes the dental N into a cerebral N. Okay, next one. Putranam. Putranam is the genitive plural, or what we call Shasti Bahuvachanam, right, ending of Putra. So it means of, whereas Ramena and Putrena are instrumental singular, which means, by Rama or by the son, right? By or with Rama or with the son, right? Putrana means of all the sons, of the sons, plural, more than two, right? Of the sons, Bahuvachanam, right? So we can see also there's a letter R, Refa, right, which comes before the ending, which is Anam, right? So that changes the N in the ending, Anam, which was dental, into cerebral, like that. So what do we learn from this is we can learn some paradigms, we can learn some nouns that have this dental change because they have letter R or re or cerebral S coming before the endings. Or what we can do is we can learn some that don't have them, and we can learn some that do have them, and we can just note that some of these endings, the N is changed to a cerebral N, and some of them it stays a dental N. Okay, so there's some examples. Okay, so now in this chart, the sounds which could interfere are in bold. Okay, so they are all consonants in 3 rows except for ya. Okay, right. So if we look at these are the different vargas. So we've got the top line is gutturals, then we have palatals, then we have cerebrals, then we have dentals, then we have labials, excuse me, on the lips. So we notice that the ka varga and pa varga, the family beginning with ka and the family beginning with pa, those 2 lines are not in bold. Where we see the bold are the rows of consonants that are going to interfere with this rule. So we have cha, cha, ja, ja, nya, and then over here we have the palatal S, sha, sh. Then we have ta, ta, da, da, na, and then we have no others in that line. Then we have ta, ta, da, da, na, ta, ta, da, da, without the N, because, it's the N we're talking about changing. So obviously that doesn't interfere with it changing to cerebral N. And we have the lakara, L, and the regular L, dental L, and dental S, regular dental S. So that's just another way he shows us the exceptions that come in between one of these letters, like Refa, Rakara, short or long re or re, and the cerebral S. If there's an intervening one of these letters, then that interferes with that change of the dental N to the cerebral N. Okay, so if another N immediately follows the N, right? So we've learned, I think that we've learned a Sandhi where the N's double up. So if we see a Sandhi, let's say, where there's a double N, a double dental N, 2 regular N's sitting there, right? Then somehow it's possible, immediately follows N, then they both get cerebralized. They both get made retroflex, was in the way he says it. And so therefore the 2 dental N's turn into 2 cerebral N's. Makes sense. Okay. Now, that's enough for Sandhi. All right. So there are standard endings to nouns, which we all know about. And so far, let's recap. What have we learned? We've learned A ending, short A ending masculine nouns. And we learned short A ending neuter nouns. And the short A ending masculine nouns are usually spoken of, or as they're usually listed as ending in the short A, which is more or less the evocative singular, but anyway, somehow or other it's the nominative singular without the visarga, right? So when we talk about Rama or Nara, it's short A ending masculine noun. The neuter nouns are usually spoken of with the short A, but also with an M on the end of it, which is their actual nominative singular. So patram, pushpam, palam, these are all neuter nouns, and we talk of them, instead of saying pushpa, we want to make a distinction when we say it, right, that everybody knows it's neuter, so we just say pushpam, flower, or palam, fruit, or toyam, water, like that. So when we want to, for now, when somebody says to you, here's a new noun, it ends in short A, it's nara, it means a man, and it's masculine. If they say patram, it means a leaf or and it ends in M, like that. So, but it actually ends in the short A, and that's the stem which all these endings come on. Okay, so we know those 2. We know how to decline those 2 types of nouns. We know how to decline regular A ending masculine nouns and A ending, or we could say ending, neuter nouns. So now we're going to learn feminine nouns, and the first type of feminine noun. So there's other types of masculine nouns too, I ending, U ending, whatever, and consonant ending. We haven't learned those yet. But the bulk majority of masculine nouns are short A ending, right? The bulk majority of neuter nouns are short A ending and follow patram pushpam like that. So we're going to learn long A ending. We're going to learn long A ending feminine nouns. So there are standard endings for nouns, and it will help to compare all future declensions, right, with the standard endings. Some declensions follow these endings more closely than other declensions. The standard endings are the same for all genders, except the neuter nominative and neuter accusative, neuter nominative and neuter accusative, which are M, I, I. M, long I, short I, like that. Right? So remember that, the neuter, because remember we have Krishnaha, Krishna, Krishnaha, Krishnam, Krishnal, Krishnan. That's nominative, accusative, and right. So nominative, accusative changes. That was the main change that we saw between the nominative now, the masculine nouns that we did, and the neuter nouns. So the neuter nouns change. Instead of Krishnaha, Krishna, Krishnaha, Krishnam, Krishnal, Krishnam, we have Patram, Patre, Patrani, Patram, Patre, Patrani. So here we have the M ending, the long I ending, the short I ending, like that. Okay, so let's have a look. These are just endings. These are just endings. So when we look at the endings, masculine and feminine and neuter at the top of these columns here, we have nominative, accusative, instrumental, dative, ablative, genitive, and locative. So that will be 7 cases. There's also a vocative, which we're not going to talk about here. I don't think we just talk about that because we know from before that the vocative, right, which is called sambodhana and sometimes called sambodhana pratama, because nominative is pratama, because it's very similar to the nominative, the pratama case. Is very similar, so we don't have to talk about it right now. So let's just talk about the nominative from 1 to 7, the case ending. So we have masculine and feminine ending in S. The ending is S, which turns into visarga, by the way, right? So Krishnas becomes Krishnaha. Then we have in neuter, we have, for instance, patram is patram. It ends in an M. In the dual, we have the ending is ao, so Krishnao. Right, but the neuter ending is long I. So patram patre, patram patre is from long I. It becomes the E, like that. Then we have us as the ending for long for nominative A ending nouns, and that us by Sandhi becomes aha. The 2 A's come together in nara and us and become long A, and the S becomes a visarga, right? So naraha, or Krishna, Krishnam, Krishnal, Krishnaha, right? And then we have patrani, the short I, like that. So anyway, let's not get into how they all fit with Sandhi with their different stems or roots. Not roots, stems as nouns, and let's just look at what he's showing us. These are just the endings, the way they are. So and M, ow and long I, us and short I are the accusative endings for masculine, feminine, neuter. Instrumental long A, byam with a long A, bis, right? That bis also, the S, whenever you see an S here, it's going to, at the end of the word, it's going to turn into a visarga. So bis is going to become bihi, right? So we have Krishnam, Krishnal, Krishnaha, Krishnam, Krishnaha, Krishnaha, Krishnam, Krishnal, Krishnan, Krishnena, Krishnabhyam, Krishnahi, Krishnaya, Krishnabhyam, Krishnebhyaha. Krishnahi, actually, that doesn't work like that. I said Krishna. Okay, so bis is there. E is the dative ending singular. Byam is the dual, and byas which is going to come byaha, is going to be the plural. Again, ablative as, which is going to become aha, byam, and byas, which is going to become byaha. Right? Genitive is, or possessive case, as, os, and am, singular, dual, and plural. the S's at the end of the singular and dual are going to turn into Visarga. So it's going to be, anyway, then we have I, Os, and Su are going to become the endings for the locative. Okay, so anyway, these endings are generally applied. I don't recommend that you learn the endings. There's a Paninian sutra where you can rattle off the endings like that. These are the endings according to Panini, and if you remember them, then you can. But I don't recommend that you learn this chart or anything like that. That's not important, right? Just learn a different paradigm or an example word for each type of ending, each type of noun ending, specifically the A ending masculines, the first of all, the A ending masculines, the A ending neuters, and the long A ending feminines, which is what we're going to learn now. Okay, so these endings are generally applied to most stems using Sandhi rules. For example, the masculine nominative plural, this is what I was saying, ending in us, when us is added to nara, so nara plus us, it becomes naras. The word for men becomes naras, long as, right? And then with sandhi, it becomes naraha. If you make the sandhi, if you look at the sandhi chart for visarga sandhi, the between words, the s becomes a visarga. Yeah. So these standard endings are listed by Panini in Sutra 412, which I just rattled off for you, which was Su Ajas Yamashas Tabem Sup. Okay, so those are the endings, right? So if you want to learn that sutra sometime, you can learn it. You don't have to learn it. It's not going to help you that much at this point. If you just learn paradigms, learn example words to start with, and know a couple of example words. So learn Rama, learn Krishna, learn Vrindavana, learn Vana for a neuter, so for masculine Krishna or Rama, and for feminine A ending, you can learn Radha like that. Learn the endings like that. You'll be chanting the holy name. At the same time, you'll be learning Sanskrit. Okay, so that begins with Su and ends with P or Sup, right? Suptingantam Padam, right? So that's his previous sutra that tells us that Panini calls these endings Sup because they start with Su and they end with P. Okay, don't ask about that now. If anybody wants to know why, they can get in touch with me and we'll talk. Panini therefore calls these endings Sup. The endings these are endings for nouns. Noun endings are called by Panini Sup. Verb endings are called by him Ting. So he has this sutra Suptingantam Padam. When Sup or Ting come at the end of a word, it's a proper word. It's a finished word. When those two endings come on the end of a word, that's a finished word. Okay. So on the following page is a declension of feminine nouns ending in the long A in their stem form. Okay, so he uses here Sena, which means army. Now it's a feminine noun. Obviously, normally we don't think of an army as a feminine thing, but it's not naturally feminine, but the noun itself is feminine because we understand in Sanskrit that the gender assigned to a particular word doesn't have anything to do with the meaning of the word necessarily. Okay, so you might have a masculine word for wife, a feminine word for wife, and a neuter word for wife, but it doesn't mean that the wife is masculine, feminine, and neuter. She's a woman. The wife is always a woman, and there are three words that we can use: a masculine word, a feminine word, a neuter word. So it's the gender of the word which is important, not the gender of the thing that is just being described by the word. Okay, so here we have Sena. We could use Radha. So if it was Radha, we would say Radha, going from nominative, singular, dual, and plural down to locative. We go Radha, Radhe, Radaha, Radam, Radhe, Radaha, Radaya, Radabhyam, Radabhihi, Radayai, Radabhyam, Radabhyaha, Radaya, Radabhyam, Radabhyaha, Radayaha, Radayoho, Radanam. Right now, in the case of Radanam, because there's an R in beginning. What happens to the N there? The N turns into a cerebral, right? Radayam, Radayoho, Radasu, right? He Radhe, He Radhe, He Radaha, right? Or Radhe, Radhe, Radaha, right? In the vocative. Yeah. Okay. Is there any other place where Radha would turn the N into a cerebral? Maybe instrumentals, no. So probably just in the N's turning in cerebral in the genitive plural. Yeah. Shasti Bahuvachanam. Radhanam. Here he's giving us a simple one. Sena doesn't include a letter that comes before the ending that will change the N into a cerebral N. Okay, so let's go on. Feminine nouns must have feminine adjectives. Right. So now an adjective is just like a noun. It's considered more or less like a noun. It's called a visheshana. It's a subanta. Subanta means subanta, ending with a. The letters, the endings which are called sup by Panini. So subanta means a noun we could call it a subanta, or we could call it a visheshana. Is a particular type of subanta. It's an adjective. An adjective is a word that describes the noun. Okay, so if you have a word that describes the noun, right, that has to agree with the noun usually in number and gender and case. So adjectives can actually, they're like nouns, but they can have endings put on them, either masculine endings, feminine endings, or neuter endings, depending on what they describe. So for example, if I say a beautiful man, I have to put on the word beautiful, I have to put masculine endings, because the word I'm using for man is naraha, which is a masculine noun. If I say a masculine woman, I mean a beautiful woman, then because the word if I use a word for woman, which is a feminine word, then I have to add feminine endings to the adjective for beautiful. And if I say there's a beautiful object, which is neuter, and I have or it's a neuter noun, like here, like here we have a feminine noun, sena. It's an army. If I describe if I describe the army as big, on the adjective big, I have to add a feminine ending, because it has to agree with the gender of the word that it describes, the adjective. So just remember, adjectives agree with the noun that they describe in number, gender, and case. So feminine nouns must have feminine adjectives. Masculine and neuter adjectives normally are declined, like Nara and Pala, right? So we have Krishna and Vana, right? Vrindavana, right? So Nara and Pala he gives, or men and fruit, right? These are the examples, the paradigms or examples that he gives for masculine A ending and neuter A ending nouns. So he says that if you have an adjective which is describing a masculine noun, then put on it an ending like you would if you declined the masculine nara or the neuter pala, depending on whether the noun which you're describing with your adjective is masculine or neuter, right? No matter what ending, if it's I ending or U ending, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Use the A ending masculine endings and the A ending neuter endings for your adjective. Now, if your adjective is describing a feminine noun, doesn't matter whether the feminine noun ends in long A or I or whatever it is, doesn't matter, then we should probably decline it. So if the noun is feminine, the adjective is declined, like long A or long I stems. Now, we haven't learned long I feminines yet, right? Like Lakshmi or something like that. So we're learning long A now. So he says it could be declined like long A or long I, depending on the noun. If the noun ends in long I, maybe it would be declined as the adjective describing that feminine noun would be in long I, or maybe not. Okay, so decline it in either way, but we only know one way right now. We just learned the long A endings for the feminine. So the feminine stem ending in I will be studied in lesson 13. So we have another couple of lessons before we get to the I ending, nouns like Lakshmi or Shri, whatever it is. Okay, so the dictionary will indicate how the feminine adjective is formed. For example, so if we look in the dictionary and find the word in the dictionary, we'll find out. So for example, here's some examples. Kupita, right? So if we look up Kupita and we see Kupita, Bhita, Dharmika, Sundara, these are adjectives. Now these adjectives, right? You notice that it says masculine, feminine, and neuter. But it has before neuter, before the N, so MFN. But in between the M and F and the N, in brackets, there's a long A ending, long A ending, or long I ending, or long A ending, or long I ending. So what it's saying here is that if you have a feminine, after the feminine, if you're describing a feminine noun with this adjective, use long A endings. But whereas that's with Kupita, and that's also with beta, use long A endings. But if you're describing a feminine noun, it doesn't matter what that noun ends in, but if it's a feminine noun, and if you're describing it with the adjective dharmika or sundara, then you should properly use long I ending formations. All right. But we won't learn those until lesson 13. So stay tuned for that. So in the dictionary, it's marked with MFN. M means masculine, F means feminine, N means neuter, obviously. The word is an adjective, right? As soon as we see that, right, next to a word, if we see a word and we see MFN, we know it's an adjective. If we just see M, we know it's a noun because it's masculine noun. If we see F, it's a feminine noun. If we see N, it's a neuter noun. But if we see MFN, we realize it's not just a noun, it's an adjective. It's not like a nominal word, but it's a particular type of noun. It's an adjectival noun, right? So therefore, we are going to then have to add endings to it according to the thing that it describes, and whether the thing that it describes is masculine, feminine, or neuter, right? Grammatically, we have to change those endings for the adjective. Okay, so and it will tell us in the dictionary how to do that. In most cases, we're using the long A endings, for feminines. In some cases, like dharmika and sundara here, we should use the long I endings. Okay, so if the dictionary entry is marked MFN, the word is an adjective, and the feminine adjective is usually formed in long A, the long A endings. He says it's usually in long A. So we've just learned all the usual ones. So there'll be some exceptions, like dharmika and sundara, which are listed here, and we know they're exceptions because instead of long A after the F for feminine, it says long I. So it's giving us a hint in the dictionary that we should use long I endings. Okay, so now we have third person pronouns. So what have we done so far? We've done a little bit about Sunday, 2 rules, right? We've shown how dental S turns into cerebral S. We've shown how dental N turns into cerebral N. Okay. Then we showed our new feminine long A ending nouns. Now we are going to look at pronouns again. Pronouns again, remember, are there's different types of nouns, and pronouns are nouns that when we don't have a name for a thing, we say he, she, or it, right? Or that. We use different pronouns. So there's different types of pronouns. Okay, so now we're going to talk about third person. I think we had aham, I, we had twam or twad, we had yushmad, we had you, we had plural you, we had singular you, twad in previous lesson. So we know about first person pronouns, right? I, we, two, or we both, we know about that. We know about second person pronouns. We know about you singular, you dual, you both, and you all, or you plural, right? We know about that. Now we're going to learn about third person. What are third person pronouns? He, she, or it. Now, up until now, we have understood third person pronouns by the ending on the verb. So the verb ending, usually when we see a verb in a dictionary, it's given to us in the third person singular with a third person singular ending. So remember, we saw that when we look at the Sunday rule, we saw star becomes tishtati. So tishtati means he stands. It can also mean she stands. It can also mean it stands. Now, we don't really know whether it means he, she, or it stands. If there's no other word in the sentence, which is the subject of that verb, we don't know whether it's he, she, or it. So when we translate it, we'll say he or we'll say she, but we don't really know unless there's a noun actually to tell us that's in the nominative that goes with that the subject of that sentence, of that verb. So how do we know that? If there's another word in the sentence that's not a noun but a pronoun, that can also tell us whether to translate it as he, she, or it. And these are the actual words for he, she, and it, apart from what comes in the ending, what usually comes in the ending. So here we have, while first and second person pronouns have only one declension, right? The third person pronoun has three declensions, one for each gender. So first and second, if we want to say I, we two, we all, if we want to say, if in any case ending, right, any nominal case ending, or if we want to say you singular, you dual, you plural, you both, you, or you all, right, with any ending like that, there's only one way to decline those. But as soon as we get to third person plural, we get three different ways. Why are there three different ways? Okay, really simple. There's he, there's she, or there's it. So even in English, we say by he, by him, right? He, by him, of him, for him, right? To him, right? And it would be different if we said to it or for it or of it or to her or of her. We say she, of her, right? To her, by her, right? It's different in English as well. So why shouldn't it also be different in Sanskrit? It's going to be different so we can make a distinction when we see a masculine pronoun in a sentence. We're going to translate it as some form of he or him or of him or by him or from him. When we see a feminine one, we're going to translate it as she or of her or by her or with her. And if we see a neuter one, we're going to say it, right? Or some form of it, from it, by it, right? So here we have, first of all, let's look at the different genders. So the first gender that we're going to learn is masculine. Then we're going to learn feminine and neuter as well. So here is the nominative, accusative, instrumental, dative, ablative, genitive, locative of he. Sa to te, tam to tan, tena tabyam tahi, tasmai tabyam tebyaha, tasmat tabyam tebyaha, tasya tayoho te sham, tasmin tayoho te shu. Now you notice down here we have te shu and te shu in the locative plural and te sham in the genitive. You see this cerebral S? That S is a product of internal sandhi, where a dental S is turned into a cerebral S there. Okay, but don't worry about it because it's always like this. So just learn those off by heart, right? As the masculine declension of the word he, right? Sato te tamto tan, like that. And what does it mean in English, right? So obviously he, they two, they all, or they both and they all, right? In the accusative will be him, right? Them, or them two, or both of them, right? Or them all, or right. So then instrumental will be by or with. So with him, singular, with them, or by them, dual and plural, right? Dative to or for, right? So for him, for them, right? Ablative from, so from him or from them in the plural, dual and plural, right? Genitive will be possessive, so him becomes his, right? Them becomes theirs, they becomes theirs, right? Locative in, on, or at him or them in singular, in dual and plural, right? So that's it. So we'll just learn those, and we can look them up. You know, before we learn the whole thing, we can just have it printed out, and we can go and look at it while we're doing exercises, right? So now with sandhi, Saha, the masculine nominative singular, right? Saha. So here we have Saha. What is it here? Here's the nominative singular of tad. It becomes Saha somehow or other, right? Okay. The rest of it begins with T, right? We see tau te, tam tau tan tan tena tabim tahi. That makes sense coming from tad, right? Saha doesn't make a lot of sense coming from tad, but here he's going to have a note about that. He's saying that with Sandhi, this Saha, which is the masculine singular of he, right? The pronoun he, the masculine nominative singular drops the final visarga, right? Before all consonants and all vowels except for short a. So the only time you're actually going to see Saha with the visarga on the end is before a short a in the next word. Otherwise, you're just going to see sa, S-A, S short a, right? And that's going to be the nominative singular of the pronoun he. It usually appears as sa. So at the end of a line, it appears as saha, right? Coming before a dunda or a double dunda, which is the punctuation, like a comma or a full stop period at the end of a half verse or a full verse in Sanskrit. And before a short a, it appears as so. Why does it appear as so? Because remember when we have saha, here we have that. Remember that visarga sandhi, when we have short a visarga followed by a short a, what happens? Not only the visarga drops out, but the a turns to o, right? And the short a in the following word is dropped, and you get the avagraha, right? So here we have an example of that. So here we have, what does this mean? Sa gachati. Now this is with sandhi. If we want to break this sandhi, right, of sa gachati, what does gachati mean? Gachati is third person singular of gum or gach, right? The root gum, the stem gach gets t added onto it, which is the third person singular ending for active ending, right, for that verb, and that verb means to go. So it means he, she, or it goes. Now, what's happening here is we know it's not she or it, but it is actually he that goes, because before the gachati, we don't rely only on the verb. For now, up until now, we've relied only on the verb and any nouns, proper nouns that come before. But now we're going to start using pronouns, and the pronouns are also going to tell us the gender of the subject of the sentence. So the gender of the subject of the sentence is masculine because it says sa here. Sa is saha. But when saha, a short a visarga is followed by a g, which is a soft consonant, the visarga drops out, and then we're left with sa. So sa gachati. If we want to break this sandhi, it becomes saha gachati. When we make the sandhi, we drop the visarga, and it becomes sa gachati. He goes. Right? Now, let's look at another one. Atra. Atra means here. Atra has a short a ending short a initial letter. The first letter of atra is short a. Last letter is also a short a, but anyway, it's indeclinable. We're talking about the first letter here of atra. And if we get saha coming before atra, what happens is this sandhi of the short a visarga followed by another short a, the visarga drops out, the first a turns into o, we put a vagraha or the apostrophe, and that shows that the short a in the beginning of the second word is deleted or dropped out, right? So sotra is actually, if we break the sandhi, saha, which is again what we just learned, masculine nominative singular of the pronoun he, saha, and it becomes so in front of the short a of atra, which drops out. So it becomes sotra. Sotra is saha atra. So if we're making a sentence, we take saha and atra, right? He is here. There's no verb to be. There's only he here, right? The verb to be is understood. If we wanted to put the verb to be here, what would we do? We would put bhavati, or we put asti. We've learned two verbs for the verb to be, bhavati and asti. So we could say sotra asti or sotrasti, right? If with Sandhi, or we could put Sotra Bhavati, right? He is here. If we wanted to actually write the verb, but the verb is understood. The verb to be is many times understood, as we know. So Sotra is enough to say he is here. And if we want to make that sentence, we say Saha, nominative singular of the pronoun he, and Atra, the indeclinable, meaning here, and we say he here. He here, right? He is here. And then if we see it and we want to break the Sandhi, we see Sotra, eso, avagraha, which is the apostrophe that shows that a short a is dropped out from the second word. So the first thing when we see the avagraha is we say, okay, that second word is not tra, but that is atra, because there's a short a being dropped out here. So take out the avagraha, put in a short a on the beginning of the second word, atra. Then what? Then we can see that the so is not so, but it's actually saha, which is turned into so because the visarga at the end of saha has been affected. Actually, the whole ending, aha, has been affected by the short a that follows it in the next word. So that's how we make Sandhis and break Sandhis, and that's how we understand. So these are two very good examples of how sometimes we see Sotra and sometimes we see Sagachiti. So normally we don't see with Saha, we don't see the Visarga. Only at the end of the first part of a verse, second line, second part of a verse, or the fourth line, or the last part of a verse, when we get the punctuation, the dunda or the double dunda in Sanskrit, either what we could call commas and periods or full stops. And also if it comes before, there was another example too, if it comes before before all consonants, right? Drops before all consonants and all vowels except for short a. So it always drops except for these exceptions that we have here, where we have short a. It becomes Sotra, like that. Okay, that's right. So now, after we've learned he, let's learn it. We'll get to she. So remember, we learn masculine nouns first, then we learn neuter nouns because they're very similar. And now we're going to learn masculine pronouns, third-person pronouns, and neuter third-person pronouns. So the neuter third-person pronoun, again, it's tud, right? It's called tud. So the stem is called tud. But how do we decline it? We don't decline it as sato te tam to tan. That is masculine. We're going to decline it a different way. You're going to decline it like we did with patram, patre, patrani. So it's tatte tani, tena tabyam tahi, tasmai tabyam tebyaha, tasmat tabyam tebyaha, tasya tayoho tesham, tasmin tayoho teshu. That's how we decline it. It, the pronoun, third person pronoun, it. Okay, right. So we don't need to go through the English meanings because it means, it means it subject, it object, with it, by it, for it, to it, from it, of it or its, right, on, in, or at it, right? That's what it means. So now, notice that the nominative and accusative are the only forms in which the neuter differs from the masculine, right? So in actual fact, just like with the nouns, with the short a ending nouns, masculine, and the short a ending nouns, neuter, we noted that it was only the nominative and accusative that were different, and the rest of it is the same. So let's have a look at that for a start, right? Let's see. We have Tena tabim tahi, tasmai tabim tebiha, tasmat tabim tebiha, tasya tayoho tesham, tasmin tayoho teshu. And what is it down here? Same thing, instrumental. Tena tabim tahi, tasmai tabim tebiha, tasmat tabim tebiha, tasya tayoho tesham, tasmin tayoho teshu. Okay, it's the same, right? The only difference is in the nominative and accusative, which is for masculine, for he, satote, tamtotan. And then we have to learn how it's different with neuter. For he and him, it's masculine. For it, it's neuter. Tattetani, tattetani. That's the difference. The rest of it is the same, right? And that's why we learn the neuter right after we learn the masculine, because it's so much the same. Now, the feminine is going to be a little bit different. So let's have a look and see if he teaches the feminine also here. So here's the feminine. So we see that only in a few forms, the masculine, the nominative and the accusative do the masculine and neuter third person pronouns he and it differ, but they don't differ in any other case endings, right? So here is the feminine third person pronoun. Now we've learned he, that's the third person masculine pronoun. We've learned it, that's the third person neuter pronoun. Now we're going to learn she, the third person feminine pronoun. So tad again is the root, right? But when it, or the stem or whatever you want to call it, right? That we add the endings to, right? It's going to be sort of like the masculine, but it's going to look like that declension that we just learned of Sena or Radha, right? It's going to look feminine, right? So sa te taha. Remember Radha, Radhe, Radhaha. Remember that? Or Sena, Sene, Senaha, right? That's feminine. So here it's going to be sa te taha, tam te taha. Taya tabyam tabihi, tasyai tabyam tabyaha, tasyaha tabyam tabyaha, tasyaha tayoho tasam, tasyam tayo tasu. Now you notice down here that we didn't get the dental S didn't turn to a cerebral S. Okay, just like we saw with the noun, with the feminine nouns, also it didn't, right? Okay, unless it was with Radha, because well, yeah. Anyway, anyhow, that's maybe not that rule. Okay, so that's fine. So this is what we have to learn for the pronoun she, right? Sa te taha, tam te taha, taya tabyam tabihi, tasyai tabyam tabyaha, tasyaha tabyam tabyaha, tasyaha tayoho tasam, tasyam tayoho tasu, right? So it means, of course, you know, she or they two, or they both, they many, right? Now, question would be, in the plural, right? In the plural, what if there's a mixed group? What if we have a group, right? There's one man, there's one woman, and we want to describe them. We're going to use a dual ending, right? So Lakshmi Narayana, Radha Krishna, right? So we have a group, right, of two persons, one masculine, one feminine. When we want to say they, do we use a masculine pronoun or a feminine pronoun? Okay, so the normal situation would be using a masculine pronoun for a mixed group. If you had a group of two or more ladies or feminine objects or feminine nouns, right, then you could perhaps use the feminine dual or plural. So really, even when we get to dual and plural, we're going to be using the masculine. Yeah, we're going to be using these masculine third person pronouns in the dual and plural many times, because if it's a mixed group, right? That's just the way it is. Okay, so he hasn't mentioned that yet, but he may mention something like that. Anyway, so those are the third person feminine pronouns, masculine, neuter, and feminine. And so he, it, and she. The third person pronoun can act as a pronoun or a demonstrative pronoun, meaning that. Okay, so we have other types of pronouns. These are personal pronouns. He, she, and it are personal pronouns. But there's another type of pronoun called a demonstrative pronoun. So we have demonstrative pronoun means like this or that, right? Right, them or those, like that, sort of like that. So, for example, sa gachati, he goes. He is a pronoun. Is a I would say a personal pronoun, right? He just calls it a regular pronoun. But if we say sa naro gachati, right? So let's break up those Sandhis here, right? So gachati, again, third person singular, present tense, active ending, right, of the verb to go, means he, she, or it goes. if we look, let's look and see what kind of subject we have in this sentence. So we have naro, which is actually break the Sandhi, and we get naraha. Naraha is nominative singular of the masculine noun nara, which means man, right? So that could, so the man goes will work out. But sa is here, and before the letter N, the dental N, which starts the word for man, right? It the visarga drops out. It's Saha. It's actually the word for he. It's masculine nominative singular of the third person pronoun he, right? Personal pronoun he. And it means that man goes, right? That man goes. So actually what we see here is we have, remember that we had these sentences and he said that we get nouns in apposition. We sometimes get two nouns in the nominative case, two nominatives. And somebody would say, well, which one is the subject? Well, they're both the subject. So for example, he gave an example before, Rama, the king goes, right? So Rama is the king that goes. The king goes and Rama goes, right? But instead of making it two sentences, Rama goes, the king goes, right? We want to, one way of describing Rama is that he's a king. So we say, we just simply put Rama and the king both in the same case, ending, nominative, singular. So Ramaha, Ripaha, Gachati, right? So Rama, the king goes. So this is called being in apposition, when you have two nouns that are in the same case, like that go together, like that, describe each other, let's say. So here we have also the same thing. The saha, the pronoun, becomes adjectival. It describes the man. Which man goes? That man goes. Is it that man or is it this man that goes? It's that man that goes. So it's not any man, it's that man. So it describes the particular man. So the demonstrative pronoun that can also be a translation of the third person pronoun, right? So that man would be, of course, masculine, because man is masculine. If I say that woman, right? So if I use the word for woman here, which is or a feminine word, right? Then I would have to also put the pronoun, the personal pronoun, third person personal pronoun in a female. So instead of saying saha naraha, right, which becomes sa naro, right? I would have to say, I would have to say sa, because remember up here, the feminine is just sa. There's no visarga. So there wouldn't be a visarga sandhi. Yeah. So how would we say she is here, right? We saw he is here, sotra. But she is here is not sotra, right? She is here is sa plus atra. What's sa plus atra? It's satra. So sotra means he is here. Satra means she is here. Right? And what if we wanted to say it is here? Right? Here's the neuter. Tat. Tatatra. Tatatra. He is here. It is here. Right? Okay, so that's to explain. All right, so let's keep going. Yeah, so he is explaining how we could translate the third person masculine, feminine, or neuter pronouns as demonstrative pronouns, as that. Right? Okay, so we have sa naro gachati becomes saha naraha gachati when we break the sandhis, and it means the man goes, but saha there doesn't mean he, it means that man goes. He becomes translated as that man goes, a demonstrative pronoun. The demonstrative pronoun is usually referred to in English as a demonstrative adjective. In Sanskrit, it's called a pronoun. So don't get confused here, right? In Sanskrit, adjectives are like nouns. They're considered like nouns. So don't misunderstand. Nouns can be adjectival. They can describe other nouns. like that. So here we have a pronoun, which is used to describe the noun. Which person? That man. Which man? That man. Or which man? This man, right? Like that. So this and that, they're demonstrative pronouns. Okay. So demonstrative pronoun goes in front of the noun that it's used for. In front of means to the left of, because we read left to right, right? With and corresponds to the noun in case, gender, and number. So number, gender, and case. So in number, singular, dual, plural. In gender, masculine, feminine, or neuter. In case, nominative, accusative, instrumental, genitive, instrumental, dative, ablative, genitive, locative, vocative. Right? Okay. So for example, now here's another one to show us an example, right? Sa balo gachati, right? So let's break the Sandhis first. So Saha, balaha, gachati, right? Because balo becomes balaha when we break the Sandhi, because it's and sa becomes saha when we break the Sandhi. Sa balo, right? So sa balo gachati, that boy goes. It literally means he, the boy, he goes. But we translate it as using the demonstrative pronoun, that boy goes. So here we have, these are nominative cases. So sa balo gachati, right? Now let's see another one here. We have balas tam ramam gachati. So let's break the Sandhis. So we have a couple of anushwara Sandhis here where the M's have turned into anushwaras. So we have gramam gachati is gramam gachati. Tam gramam is tam gramam. Balas tam is actually balaha tam, right? The visarga has turned into an S, right? So now we know that gachati means third person singular of the verb, active of the verb to go. He goes, right? We're looking for nominatives. Balaha is a nominative, right? The boy goes, right? Tam is what? Tam is, let's have a look up here. It's neuter. It's actually not, it's masculine. It's masculine accusative singular, tam. Why? Because grammar is a masculine noun. So although an A-ending noun, so although grammar, a village sounds like it might be a thing and might be neuter, it's not. It's actually, the word for village is masculine. So we use a masculine pronoun for it. So basically saying he village, that it's a village, he's a village, because it's masculine. Okay, so it's accusative, masculine accusative singular, right? So we have masculine accusative singular of tam. Okay, so tam gramam, right? So this is tad. This is he, she, or it, right? We're going to translate it as like it, but it's going to be turned into a demonstrative pronoun and be called that. So we have the boy goes to. Now it says here, tam grama means that village. That is the object. That is the accusative, right? They're both in the accusative masculine, because gramam is masculine, tam is also masculine. If gramam was neutered, it would be tat, right? Tatetani, tatetani, right? So, but because gramam is masculine noun, it's tam. Okay. So now let's have a look at another example. The word eva means like or as if, right? So let's look at this sentence here. We have nripa, eva, balo, vadati. So vadati again, right? Let's break the Sandhis first. Okay. So we have nripa is going to be nripaha, balo. Balo is going to be balaha, right? So we have two nominatives, and we have eva, like, and they're separated by eva. So we have vadati, he speaks. So who speaks? the boy. The boy is the subject of the sentence. The boy, Balaha, is the boy. The boy speaks. Eva, Nripa Eva. Nripa Eva is like a king. Nripa Eva, like a king. Okay. All right. So that brings us to our vocabulary for lesson 11. I think he needs to say a little bit more about the use of Eva here, but anyhow, we'll leave that. He hasn't said much about it. Let's look at the vocabulary. Again, the vocabulary is in Sanskrit alphabetical order. Avidya is feminine, so it's an example. We can use it as a paradigm like sena, right? It means ignorance. Avidya. Of course, vidya means knowledge. Avidya means ignorance, right? Eva is an indeclinable. It's as if or like, and used after verbs, sometimes nouns or adjectives. It can be used after any one of those things. Now, he hasn't mentioned here what case you need to put the verbs, nouns, well, the nouns or adjectives in that come before it, but we'll see. Okay, so then kata means story, right? Krishna kata, Rama kata, right? The story of Krishna, the story of Rama. Like that's feminine noun. Kanya means a girl, right? A young girl. And kupita is an adjective. It's a feminine adjective, also in long A, means angry. Chaya means shadow. It's the name of one of the wives of the sun, I believe. Chaya. And then putrika, feminine, means daughter. So we have putra, a son, putrika, a daughter. Then we have praja. Praja means a subject, or it could also mean a child. Right? Bala means a girl, right? So we have bala, balaha, bala is a boy. Bala is a girl, right? Bharya is a word for wife, a feminine word for wife. There may be other words in different genders, right? Then we have bita, which is again an adjective, means afraid. We have mala, garland, feminine. We have vidya, knowledge, which we can compare to avidya. When we put a short a in front of something in Sanskrit, it usually gives us the opposite meaning to what it is. Remember, we also had gachati, which means to go, and agachati, which means to come. So this works also for this short a in the beginning of something, prefixing something. It works for verbs and it also works for nouns in Sanskrit. So we have here vidya, which means knowledge. Then we have Sita, right? The wife of Rama, Sita. And we have Sena, which was our paradigm for long A ending feminine nouns. Sena, which means a feminine word for meaning army.
Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya.